Hello everyone, welcome to Barca News. It is August 24th, 2025, and the VAR tapes have been released regarding that controversial penalty kick that was awarded to Levante against Barcelona. Also, Barcelona are the Remontada kings of Europe, and we're going to look at the numbers. And finally, the Royal Spanish Football Federation are interested in taking Marc Bernal to the Under-20 World Cup. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Mo. I will begin this video by discussing that controversial penalty during yesterday's match where Barcelona defeated Levante 2-3, mounting a heroic comeback, and where Levante's second goal was due to a penalty kick that was awarded by the incompetent, mediocre, moronic referee Hernandez, where he ruled that this display that you're seeing on the screen was a handball in the penalty area. Now, as I explained many times before, during the post-match live analysis and during the watch-along, there is no way that this is a penalty kick. As you can see, Alejandro Baldé's arm is A, close to his body, B, it's clear as daylight that he's trying to actually pull his arm away from the trajectory of the ball, and 3, even if his arm was not there, that ball would have hit his torso. So Alejandro Baldé's arm did not whatsoever impede the trajectory of the ball or impede the ball from going towards the goal, because had it not hit Alejandro Baldé's arm, it would have hit his torso. So I was completely left baffled on how the hell was this a penalty kick. But don't worry, because the VAR tapes have been released. So now at least we have an idea on what was the thought process, if Hernandez has any kind of thoughts that go through his head. But we can at least see the thought process on how Hernandez decided that this was a penalty. Now, these are the VAR tapes from yesterday's match. Jorge Figueroa was the VAR referee who said, Alejandro, of course talking to Hernandez, who was on the field, I recommend that you come to see a potential penalty for handballs. When you are on the screen, let me know, please. So then Hernandez goes to the screen, and he says the following after reviewing the play. The hand is quite separated. Okay, the hand is quite separated. Correct in the shot on goal, but put it in super slow motion. I want to see it slowly. It's only a penalty, no card for the number 3. And then the other genius, the one in the VAR, Figueroa, says, oh, correct. Yeah, good job. Correct. You are 100% right. The hand is, and I quote, quite separated. So again, I want you to look at this picture. The hand is quite separated. So Hernandez looked at this play live and decided that arm was quite separated. Then went to the VAR, saw it from all kinds of angles, zoomed in, zoomed out, slow motion, fast motion, regular motion, and decided that this was quite separated. Now you look at this and tell me how in the hell, actually, I'm not even going to say anything. Just look at this and tell me, do you think this was quite separated? Because according to Hernandez, it is. Now, after the match, the MVP of the match, Pedri, who had an absolutely spectacular performance, said the following regarding this penalty kick. I honestly don't think it was a penalty. We recently had a talk at the Ciudad Esportiva about handballs. Tchouaméni's handball last year at Montjuic was a clear handball to me. This one wasn't, and they called it. So whatever they call, it will be. I honestly don't understand it, but they should explain it properly for everyone. So Pedri saying, I don't even know what the hell's going on, because as you might recall from a previous video, the CTA sent representatives to Barcelona. They send it to all the clubs before the season begins to explain the rules, how they're going to be applied, how they're going to be interpreted. So the CTA sends representatives. They explain the handball rules. The players are like, all right, cool, sounds good, we understand. And then this happens, and Pedri's like, all right, well, I don't understand anything, because you explained to us one thing, and then the referee applies a completely different thing. And he's like, I honestly don't understand, and they should, explain it. And this goes to the point that I've been saying for the longest time, is the only way for this to be clarified, or one of the ways that we can improve refereeing in Spain, is that referees need to start holding their own press conferences after matches, where they need to explain how they arrived at decisions, because I think this would go a long way to help clarify these things. Because a lot of times fans might get upset at referees because maybe they don't know the rule. Or maybe they do know the rule, but the rule has changed and they're not aware of the change. Or maybe they are aware of the change, but they don't completely comprehend how the rule should be applied. So I think this would be a great opportunity for referees to come out and say, look, this is what the rule is. This is how it's supposed to be interpreted. This is how I applied it. And then, right, no problem. Now the fans who were confused are like, oh, okay, all right, my bad. It was my mistake, not yours. Now, in the case when referees are mistaken, like in this case, Hernandez, then they can come out and explain how they arrived at the decision. And this would give feedback to La Liga to think, okay, well, I'm starting to notice all these referees are understanding this specific rule incorrectly, or they're interpreting it incorrectly or applying it incorrectly. How do I know? Because I'm listening to their press conferences, and that's not how you're supposed to be interpreting or applying these rules. So then they can go back, change the rule, explain it better, retrain the referees, do whatever they need to do to correct what's going on. But no, La Liga is just like, wash my hands, and oh well. Let them keep being the average mediocre referees that they are. By the way, Pedri, what he's talking about, the Tchouaméni, in case you already forgotten, which I doubt you have, it's this one. This was last season in the Clásico match. Tchouaméni clearly extends his arm to block the ball, and the same referee, Hernandez, says, no, this is not a penalty. So, Balde's arm that was stuck to his body, that was quite separated, but this one, which is actually separated, I mean, look, you can fit the whole ball in between his arm and his torso. That one is not, and that one is not a penalty kick. Again, how is someone like Hernandez still have his job? I have no idea. If I was making these kind of egregious jobs at my job, I would have been fired a long, long time ago. But this moronic, incompetent, mediocre ref continues to make egregious mistakes, egregious. And he still has his job and making a crap load of money, by the way. How? This only happens in La Liga. Now, to make things worse, you guys remember Mateo Laos? Another terrible referee, one of the worst referees in the most recent years. He actually has agreed with Pedri and with Barcelona, saying the following. He sticks his arm out. His hand is quite detached. He's talking about Tchouaméni. This hand is punishable. He can't pick it up anymore. The last precedent we have of this referee going to the monitor was a handball by Tchouaméni in that Clásico. If that moment he decided that it was not a penalty, it is impossible for him to decree a handball in this play. Talking about, of course, the Levante match. So Mateo Laos, agreeing that Tchouaméni's handball was a penalty and saying if that was not a penalty, then this against Balde is for sure not a penalty. I mean, this is how bad refereeing has gotten in Spain, where we're actually agreeing with Mateo Laos, one of the worst referees in recent times. So good job, La Liga, and good job, Royal Spanish Football Federation, on continuing to be the absolute mockery of European football. Now, speaking of course, of the match against Levante, as you know, Barcelona mounted a heroic comeback. And this makes it the 11th comeback that Hansi Flick's Barcelona have mounted, making them the Remontada Kings of Europe with the most comebacks or most successful comebacks. And let's look at all the comebacks that Flick's Barca have been able to complete. Barcelona started against Valencia losing 1-0, and they ended up winning 1-2. Against Rayo Vallecano, same thing, 1-0, ended up winning 1-2. Against Real Madrid, they started losing 1-0, ended up winning 5-2. Against Benfica, they were losing 3-1, ended up winning 4-5. Against Inter Milan during the first leg, they were losing 0-2, ended up drawing 3-3. Against Atletico Madrid, both times they were down by 2 goals. The first time they ended up drawing 4-4, and the second time they ended up winning 2-4. Against Celta Vigo, they were down 1-3, ended up winning 4-3. Against Real Madrid, they were down 1-2. That's in the Copa del Rey, ended up winning 3-2. And then against Real Valladolid, being down 1-0, ended up 1-2. And of course, the 11th one is yesterday against Levante, where they were down 2-0. And Flick's men ended up winning 2-3. 11 remontadas, successful remontadas. The only remontada that was not successful was the one against Inter Milan in the second leg, which ended in defeat and ended up with Barcelona being knocked out of the Champions League. But this just goes to show that, Hansi Flick's tactical flexibility and the relentless pressing of the team is what has made Barcelona the remontada kings, or the comeback kings of all of Europe. Now, while we're still on the topic of the match, today was a recovery day. As you know, after a match day The players have a recovery session where they do specific exercises so their muscles can recover from the stress of a match. One player that was not present in the recovery session was Andreas Christensen, because it looks like he is suffering from some general discomfort. And of course, in order to be cautious, as you know, Flick he's very, very cautious with his players. He decided to give him the day off and not have him train. So Christensen was not present at the recovery session. This is not a serious injury. This is simply a precaution because he did feel some discomfort. Now, by the way, Christensen, who did only play for a few minutes, had actually pretty interesting numbers when I was looking at it, which I wanted to share with you. Christensen in total had 23 touches. He completed 20 out of 22 passes. He won 3 out of 3 duels that he contested, and he even had 1 key clearance, and that's in the very few minutes that he played. Not a bad match for Christensen, who will hopefully feel better and be available for the next upcoming match. By the way, Flick has given all the players 2 days off. They had the recovery session today. They're off on Monday, they're off on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, they'll be back in training. Now, we will end today's video with the news that the Royal Spanish Football Federation have inquired about taking Marc Bernal to the Under-20 World Cup, which will be held in Chile from September 27th until October 19th. And well, upon this inquiry, Barcelona said, haha, good one, thank you, but no thank you. You cannot take Marc Bernal. So Barcelona have rejected the Royal Spanish Football Federation request to take Marc Bernal. Of course, Barcelona are being extra cautious with Bernal. Bernal has already received the medical clearance to play, but of course, Barcelona being cautious, they want to wait until it's been a full year since his injury. That's going to happen in September. And then, after the FIFA international break, Barcelona will start giving the player minutes, easing him in slowly to not risk re-injury. So if we can't use him because we're so afraid that he gets re-injured, Royal Spanish Football Federation, I'm sorry, but you can't use him either. But nice try. Anyways, that is all the news for this video. We'll be uploading another video in a few moments, so stay tuned to the channel. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, and as always, be Barça.